and serving people everywhere.
That's really cool. So, are you guys a government organization or just private?
We're a private organization. We aren't government. We aren't military in that sense. We have a military structure that was put in place back in 1865, and it's not changed that much.
So, for a military structure, do you guys have like someone who runs the organization, like a general or anything like that?
Yes, we have a general who works out of our London office. We have the United States is divided into 4 different territories, and then we have a coordinating office in Washington, D.C. that coordinates the 4 territories of the Salvation Army.
Okay, that's really cool. So it's really structured, and these people work here and they work here, and then you have chains of command, things like that.
Right, right. It's a very structured and kind of military in its organizational structure. So you have levels of administration. You have people that are responsible for local communities and the programs and services and the ministry that goes on there.
So, speaking of your ministries and services, what kind of programs and things do you guys offer?
Well, I like to say that we have everything from the rocking horse to the rocking chair. We have children's programs, we have daycare programs, we have summer camp programs, we have senior citizen programs, we have family programs. All of these are a part of the Salvation Army structure. In each community, whatever the needs are and whatever the resources allow, we try to adapt our programs and services based on those criteria.
Yeah, so it's really personalized to what...
It's personalized, right. And every community supports its own programs.
So, have you always been in the Salvation Army in this area, or you guys move around?
No, we've moved around quite a bit. I've retired kind of about 8 years ago, and so I've been living in this general area since that time. But prior to that, I've lived in 10 or 12 different communities here in the western part of the United States.
Which one of those places was kind of your favorite or the coolest experience?
It's hard to pick a favorite because they're all unique and they all have qualities and they all have their problems. But I suppose I enjoyed living in Alaska. That was a exciting time, the 3 years that we were able to spend there.
Yeah, I mean, Alaska's a really cool place. I haven't been there, but I'm hoping to go this summer.
Yeah.
Where in Alaska were you?
Well, I was in charge of the Salvation Army in Alaska, so I was in Anchorage, but I traveled the entire state to the various Salvation Army programs that operated there.
So you just kind of did all the stuff there, or did you have anything that was like your main focus in Alaska?
Well, I was administrative at that point. My position was as a divisional commander, and then each community had its own officer that was in charge, and so there were programs that were alcohol rehab programs, there were emergency housing programs, there was food programs, there were church ministry, all of those kinds of programs.
Yeah, I mean, in Alaska, emergency housing is probably a lot bigger than somewhere that's like around here, because obviously the weather there is a lot more harsh.
Well, it is harsh, and life is a little bit more brutal sometimes because of the weather.
So, if you could have gone anywhere else with the Salvation Army, like what other programs would you have gone to?
Well, I've been in many different areas, and I think the alcohol and drug rehabilitation programs are some of the programs that we do our best work in, and we have those scattered throughout the country. Incidentally, the Salvation Army probably has the largest number of alcohol and drug rehabilitation beds of any organization in the country.
Wow, that's really cool.
So it's a 6-month program. People come in, they're not charged anything. although they are asked to be a part of a work therapy program so that we can work with them and help them begin to deal with the addictions that have been a problem for them.
Oh, okay. So I think right now we're going to cut to a segment about an AP US History Club, and then we'll be back in just a minute.
So what exactly happened here?
You know, Thomas, he was fine. He was completely fine. I don't know why this happened. 2 weeks ago, something changed in him. Something snapped, and he's been acting so different ever since. Get the camera.
Thomas, you okay?
Like one day I just walked into class and he looked all emotional and dead inside.
Are you okay, Thomas? Thomas?
He's just been acting strange. He thinks everything is schoolwork, that his schoolwork is food and his food is schoolwork.
What is he doing? What is he?
I mean, I knew that something was weird with him, but I didn't know why. And then I realized the only thing that's changed is the AP US History class. This is why he's acting so weird. I didn't get it until now. Thomas? Thomas, are you okay? Thomas. It's inevitable. You can't stop it. You can only run away.
Welcome back to Charger Chat. We're here with Lieutenant Harold Broden. Am I saying that correctly? With the Salvation Army. And so, one of the things I'd like to ask is, in Marysville, in our area, what kind of programs and things do you have going on?
Marysville is kind of a new operation for us, about 8 years old now. And we're providing help for families that have emergency needs, food. We try to keep them in their homes so we can help. We sometimes are able to help out with utilities and sometimes rent. It depends on the resources, and we're pretty short of resources right now. So we try to help those individuals that need it the most.
Yeah, and with Christmas coming up and stuff, do you guys do anything different or unique for the holiday time?
Yeah. Christmas is our biggest fundraising time of the year with the Christmas kettles that you see around and all of that kind of thing. But we provide gifts for children. We provide food for the family so that they can have a special Christmas dinner. We have some clothing that's available for individuals as well. In addition to that, we provide meals for the homeless and for low-income individuals. We currently are providing one dinner a week and 2 breakfasts. So on Tuesday and Thursday we have a breakfast where people can come in and have a warm breakfast. Wednesday evenings we provide a dinner, and people appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really cool thing to, have a soup kitchen type deal where people who need food can come in.
Right.
Yeah. So for all the work that you guys do, is it volunteer work or do you get paid, or how does that work?
Well, certain of the staff are paid because it's a full-time operation, and they need to be able to provide for their own livelihood, although nobody gets rich from working for us. But we do rely a great deal on volunteers. If we didn't have the volunteer support, we couldn't do what we're doing. Generally, people that serve at the meals are volunteers, individuals that come and wrap gifts or do it as a volunteer opportunity. Some of the Christmas bell ringers are volunteers. We do employ some of the low-income individuals, help them to earn their own funds for Christmas as well. And we think that's an important step for them.
So, besides, the bell ringers, things like that, what are some ways that you guys get more funds? And
Well, we have direct mail that goes to individuals. People see what we're doing, and they'll voluntarily just make donations through the year. We do have some program fees that are minimal that also help out. So we try to find funds wherever we can, basically.
How do you select what families?
Pardon me?
How do you select what families?
Families are referred to us, and families will just call us. And we go through a case management process where we sit down and talk to them and find out what the needs are and what the circumstances are. And then, based upon that information, we try to help in the best way possible. One of the things that is really very important to us is that we don't want to be just a handout, we want to be a hand up. In other words, we want to help people resolve their problems so that they can move on with their life and not live in the circumstances that they find themselves at the present time. And so we try to work with those individuals and give them guidance, give them opportunities, advice, whatever it is that is necessary.
yeah, I think that's really different than what a lot of charities do, where they just kind of, they'll give out food or things like that, and then you guys try to provide opportunities for them to better their own situations.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite memory or event that you really stands out in your mind from your time at Salvation Army?
Well, over the years, there's been a lot of them. Summer camp is always been an important thing. We provide camping for kids and a lot of low-income individuals, and part of my responsibilities some years ago was to operate one of our camps in Northern California. And we saw kids come through the camp from some of the large cities, and it was interesting to me and rewarding to see how they were able to change their outlook and to find some sense of purpose and meaning, and realize that there really was hope, that there was a way that they could achieve the goals that they would like to have.
That was in Northern California, you said?
Northern California. The camp was in the Santa Cruz area in the Santa Cruz Mountains.
Oh, okay. That's really cool.
So do you have to be religious to help out and stuff?
We allow people to help us no matter what their religious background is. One of the things that is important is that we look at a person as a whole person. There's not just the physical and there's not just the social, but there's also the spiritual part of us. And all of those parts need to be addressed. And we encourage people to find a relationship with God so that they can become a whole person. If you're only 2/3 taken care of, you're only 2/3 whole. And so we like people to find that. But we don't require a person to be a religious person to volunteer and to support us in any way.
So our church is kind of how you recruit people, I guess, or what are some ways that people find out about your program and get involved and start working that way?
Well, church is one way, and we a lot of our leadership comes through a church and religious process. But people know about us. We've been around for 150 years. They see the Christmas kettles on the corners, during the Christmas season. They see our thrift store trucks, throughout the year. We have thrift stores in certain areas. And then it's word of mouth. A lot of people have been helped by the Salvation Army over the years. And so people will talk and say, well, try the Salvation Army. They might be able to help. And so that's how our referrals come, and that's how people become aligned with us. Many times people will come and volunteer and say, I didn't realize who you were or what you did or the effectiveness with what you're doing. I want to be a part of it. And so they pursue that aspect of it.
So, like you said, with spreading around, what Salvation Army does and things that people can get involved with, does your family get involved at all? I mean, I'm sure that's...
As a person who worked for the Salvation Army and was committed, and it was a spiritual calling that I had, the family was always totally involved. They came, we worshiped together. I had positions where I was the preacher, the church leader, and so all of those things were a part of our family's activities. All of our children are very active in church. Even today, one of my daughters is also a Salvation Army officer down in the Los Angeles area, and so the influence, it really permeates the entire family.
So, is it ever difficult having your family going to different places and things like that to all do your different work?
Every opportunity has its pluses and its minuses. And some of the pluses is that as we have gone to various areas and served and ministered, we've made new friends, we've had new opportunities, new skills and new things that were learned. And so that's been a plus for the children as well as my wife and I.
Wow, that's really cool that you can all share that experience together.
Yeah, it's a way of life. It's a lifestyle, if you will.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So I think we're about to go into another segment. This is a satire commercial that we call Hacker Bird.
When you get too old for them, they'll be worth a lot of money.
People of America, you have been lied to. The Rare Bear Company is corrupt. Their promises of friendship, of value, they owe me nothing. I have been collecting them for 24 years, and for no use. What was it all for?
Thomas, what are you doing? It's 3 in the morning. Go back to bed.
Mom!
Welcome back to Charger Chat. So, one of the things that I was going to ask about is, you guys have your own pastors and things like that. How do you guys get ordained to do stuff like that?
The Salvation Army has its own college for training its officers, and I attended the Salvation Army College for Officers in San Francisco. It has since moved to the Los Angeles area, but there's one in in Los Angeles and one in Atlanta, one in Chicago, and then there's one on the East Coast in the New York area.
So like you said with that, the big college moving, what are some of the changes that you've seen? Because you've obviously been in the program for a while to, see and learn, and what are some ways that it's changed?
Well, I think a lot of the changes have to do with some of the cultural changes that have taken place. There's a lot of accountability that's built into our system. We're utilizing a lot more of the electronic media and those kinds of things. I think the basics, though, have remained the same. It's, we're based upon the Bible, and those principles and values are what drive us. But the methods we use are changing along with the times. We first started out in doing meetings on a street corner. With the change of our culture, street corners aren't very ideal at this point, right? Good word. And so we don't do that anymore, but we have developed a media program, and we have a lot of programs that are on the Salvation Army media site.
So do you guys have your own meeting places, or do you meet in other businesses and things like that?
Oh, we have our own facilities. They're varied. Some are like churches. Others are like residential places. And it just depends on the programs, and we try to develop the facilities that will best respond to the needs of the program. For instance, our drug and alcohol program, it's a 6-month residential program, and it's located in Seattle that serves this area. They have a room for 100 men, and then they have a separate facility for women. And so these individuals are in the program for 6 months, and they basically live and work and participate in the program there.
So what type of programs do you see that are more prominent in this area where we're living right now?
We have a very strong youth program. We have a regional camp just outside of Eatonville. We send kids to that from the entire area. We have the drug and alcohol program that I've talked to you about that's works out of the Seattle area. Locally, we have an office that provides an opportunity for case managers to work with families and share with them what resources we can. We have locally, there's a small chapel where we meet and have services on a regular basis. We have youth programs that go on here in Marysville as well that are entertaining as well as helps young people to develop a knowledge of who God is and His place in their life. So those are the local ones that are dominant.
Okay. So with all these things that obviously have to get managed, and there's all these buildings and structures and fundraisers and things like that, how often does the higher up people in the chain of command change, and how much do you think that affects the program?
The administrative leadership, there's no set period of time, but usually between 3 and 5 years you have changes. But because the structure is pretty defined, and there's enough individuals who carry on, you might have 1 or 2 people change, but you have 3 or 4 that remains. So there's a continuity that continues. And so that's, while there is change, there's still a lot of continuity, and that works well.
And is that management at present still located in the London, UK area, or has it moved?
Well, the international headquarters of the Salvation Army is in London, and it's been there since we started. But we have, various territories around the world. Being in 128 countries, we have Australia, for instance, has 2 territorial centers because the country is made up of 2 territories. New Zealand has a territorial center. The United States has 4. Canada has 1. Africa and India and many of the countries have their own territorial centers, but they all are accountable to London.
Okay. So, sorry. You want to say? Okay. So, you said you've lived maybe 10 to 12 places around through your work and going to different places and programs and things like that. Have you ever gone to any of these other countries or anything like that, to international headquarters?
I haven't been assigned because basically I was trained in the western United States, and all of my assignments have been in the West. If they had a need for me to be somewhere else, they would have asked if I would be willing to go. And depending on the circumstance, I would have been happy to do that.
So we're almost out of time. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to anyone watching about Salvation Army?
Well, just that I really appreciate the great community support that is given to the Salvation Army. It's phenomenal, and we're able to do a great deal because of that. And I'd also like to say thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Oh, thanks for coming on.
And to share some of the background and answer some of the questions that you've had.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. We have one last segment to run, and then I think the show's over. So thanks so much for coming on, and hope to see you again sometime.
Thank you.